Our next session, The Experiences, Mitigating Supply Chain Disruptions, will focus on the outlook and challenges both shippers and shipping lines would face. The moderator for this session is once again Mr. Kingsley Abewikrama, Manager at CMA CGM Sri Lanka. Please help me welcome Mr. Kingsley back on stage.
Yeah. Good morning once again for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. So before we start our next session, panel 2, once again I would like to first invite our keynote speaker for the session. For this session also we have very qualified and interesting 4 personnel. And before I introduce everybody, I would like to invite Vice President of APAC, Hamburg Port Consulting Group, Mr. Ian James, to inspire us with your presentation, which will set the tone for the next session. So, Mr. Ian, over to you, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ian. My resident is Kingsley mentioned, Hamburg Port Consulting. I'm based out of Singapore, and as I said, we're going to try to set the tone for the panel discussion on what's happening. A lot of the stuff you will see also has been presented by Sailesh earlier on about disruptions and what panels has brought up, but nonetheless, it's important we set the tone. So a little bit, what's the clicker? Next slide. We've been around about 45 years plus, and we've done about 1,800 projects in about 135 countries. Primarily these days, we do a lot of work in optimization. We're part of HHLA. And those of you who know Hamburg, HHLA is a port operator. We run 3 terminals in Hamburg, or rather 3 container terminals, and the 4th one is a multipurpose terminal. We also run CTA, which is a fully automated terminal. We don't get a lot of noise about CTA, but she's been running as an automated terminal since 2006. I think Maasvlakte takes a lot of flack for not doing the ECT, not being very well run, but we've been running ours since 2006, and we're actually coming to the end of our first cycle. We're now doing a conversion down to AGVs, et cetera, et cetera. And we also have Buchat Kai, CTB, which is a brownfield conversion. The container terminal is now 85% automated, and remaining 15% works as a standard, normal standard manual terminal. We also run a railway company called Metrans that runs all the way from Hamburg all the way down to Ukraine and Trieste. And as most of you know, MSC has also now done an acquisition of HHLA and our parent company. So the deal will be closed relatively soon. It's 49% MSC and 51% owned by the city of Hamburg, which is our parent company. We've also, as I said, you see a little one about Ukraine there, HHLA or CTO. This is for us one of our key points as HPC. We were called in by the city of Odessa or the port of Ukraine to come in and have a look. They had problems running the terminal. At the end of the project, they gave us the concession for the next 30 years. And our parent company then told us, Hamburg Port Consulting, you're a consulting company, you can't run terminals, but we've created the birth to Hamburg HIT, which is our Hamburg International Terminals, which now run 3 terminals. Quickly moving along, we are full suite consultancy. I don't want to dwell too much on that, but basically from the PPP, investment and management and optimization. So we are in the journey with you guys for the whole ride, from the investment stage right down to your management and startup stage. And then finally, as every terminal goes through its cycle, it comes to optimization, you're running out of space, you want to do something, we come in with a fresh pair of eyes to help you on your next journey. So that's generally us in a nutshell. So supply chain disruptions, the reality. So we live in a VUCA world. We've all heard this, right? Very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Geopolitical tensions have been our life story for the last decade. Maritime incidents from the Suez Canal, different incidents, SARS. I mean, people already forget SARS after COVID, but SARS was the first one that actually caused a lot of problems in China. Financial crises that we've been facing. But again, everything has an impact on maritime traffic and supply chain in the last decade. The reality is we live in a world of geopolitical instability, and I don't think we're going to see any change in the medium term, and intermittent shocks are expected. I think we heard about Red Sea crisis prolonging until 2025, even though there's now peace between Hezbollah and Israel, but I think it's going to be continued that way. China plus one, right? It influences trade patterns. We just heard about it. We have new trade patterns, new close near-shoring, reshoring, friendly shoring, right? So these little things have come in. Again, Red Sea, no end in sight, and merger and acquisitions and the current strategies of traditional verticals. Terminal operators becoming, you've lost forwarders. They're in between. Now terminal operators want to become forwarders, they want to be supply chain providers, right? So you have that one aspect. Shipping lines also spreading their wings, as we heard earlier on, building DCs. So the lines are very, very blur. So we have to adapt to these changing environments. Again, the key thing that people forget is our labor force. I think post-COVID, we've seen a very, very big change in how people work. I used to run terminals before, and running an MMC group in Malaysia in 2020, people came to me and said, how about automation? I told them, go away, it's too expensive, don't look at it. But who would have thought today in Bangkok, where labor is supposedly in abundance, they've gone autonomous trucks. And it first hit home to me in 2021 when I was running PTP as a director there. We lost 300 truck drivers overnight, all because a new company opened in Singapore for bus drivers. So we lost all our terminal tractors. Overnight, 300 guys took a new job. The guys came to me and said, boss, same job, drive a nice bus, air-conditioned, driving down Orchard Road, I see girls, rather than bouncing with no suspension in your truck. And there's no traffic jams. So the changing world, people want to be upskilled. Young people want to work. They don't want to sit in the crane like their fathers did. They want to sit in an office where they've got pretty girl, young people next to there, there's Starbucks, there's nice coffee. This is going to drive how our world changes. And I said, let's touch upon digitization and automation. That's where the world is going to be moving. I'm going to look at the traditional shipping routes as well. Just a very brief slide. I'm going to not waste your time. People knows it. But basically, as you can see, the core routes have always been the east-west trade lanes, a bit north-south in South America, and some of these trade lanes are firmly established, but they're getting distorted. Fundamentally, things are changing. Red Sea changed a lot of things. And I'll go a bit detail about Red Sea crisis because it's closest to you guys. So this is real trade lanes, and then the Suez Canal alternative, which has now come up, right? First, you had the closure of the Suez Canal. Then you had the Red Sea crisis. So all of a sudden, Red Sea route is 19 days from Asia to Europe. It becomes now a 31-day alternative route. And this is what its reality is, right? High frequency, so basically you've seen 50% drop in transit in Suez Canal. And this is the real data that I've got from the IMF Port Watch. You can pick it up from there. And that's how the red line represents the moving average and what it used to be in the past. And it's not going to change. Cape of Good Hope has gained 74% of volumes. What has happened? India, 80% of exports go through Europe, 6% of trade with Europe, transit Suez Canal from China. Suez Canal tolls, 10%. I mean, this is amazing, right? You know, 10% of the GDP comes from Suez Canal tolls, but you don't hear Egypt complaining. So the question then I beget is, who funds this? Who subsidizes all these losses, right? But Egypt is losing a lot in its economy. Sudan, depending on aid cargo, we've also now heard they're in trouble again, and Jordan for rock phosphates. So ports itself suffered, right? Look at it. We've heard about Red Sea ports, Jeddah, 7%, I think Middle East ports are down, right? So this is the reality. Suez, Jeddah, Port Sudan, Djibouti, to a certain extent, even Salalah. But the impact also affects the Mediterranean ports because everybody has to turn around at some point. So hubs like Piraeus, hubs like Jotaro, Port Said also were impacted.
So I think this is probably my last slide. So yeah, that's it. So I think this sort of sets the tone for us to now get the rest for Kingsley to invite the rest of the gang up there, and then we'll probably have a little bit of a discussion for the next 40 minutes or so.